Perfectly excellent.
Hey, what's up there, party people? Welcome to another episode of Perfectly Excellent. What's going on, Tim? Good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. The rain's coming down. It's a little bizarrely cold this time of the year, but nothing is less interesting than talking about weather. So mostly okay. Stressful work week, stressful work day, but looking forward to a long weekend.
Yes, it is definitely a holiday weekend, so that's good news. But the weather thing cracks me up because anytime I'm in a situation and that comes up, that's immediately what I think in my head. I'm like, we've hit rock bottom, like conversation rock bottom now. We're all talking about the weather.
The only reason I brought it up is it literally just started pouring. So,
and I was going to say, we don't live that far apart, but I didn't hear any rain before we started, but it's coming our way. We're talking about weather. Forget it. We got better things to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. So I don't want to, let's not do that. I'm excited. All right, what's that?
How do you feel about like karma and jinxing things by talking about something prematurely? Like what is your stance on that?
I want to know, so I'm going to lie and say there's no such thing as karma. You don't jinx stuff.
If you get a shipping notification for something, chances are you're good, right?
Is this your McDonald's thing that you were worried about?
No, that's fine. I got that. That's good.
Unless it's from NECA, I think you're in good shape.
I believe I managed to get the Star Wars Retro Collection figures from Target.
Oh, so did they came back in stock? You're able to get an order?
Basically, a handful of them have been popping up every morning here and there, like randomly between like 5:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. And I've caught them a couple of times and like gotten them into my cart, but then couldn't get a checkout. This morning, I sat there for about 40 minutes, just constantly trying to get one through. And eventually one went through. And I was like, oh, let's see how that goes. Because I've heard of other people getting it through and then immediately getting a cancellation email. Right before we hit record, we started going live. I got an email from Target with my tracking number.
Yeah, I would think you're pretty safe there. Something like Target, I would be very, very confident about it. So kudos. I'm glad you were able to score one of those. Fingers crossed still, but
yeah. I'm still a little until it's in my hand, I will be concerned. But boy, what a pain in the neck that has been since they canceled everybody on the planet's pre-order. And now, you just have to scavenge for them. Oh, looks like we lost Alan here. So I'm not sure where he went, but he's frozen. I don't even know if he knows he's frozen.
I do not know I'm frozen because I'm talking.
Now you're just fuzzy.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't feel frozen. Definitely feel. Turn down my here.
Well, anyway. I am very hopeful that this figure shows up because just for those who don't know, pre-orders for these figures, which are 6 retro-styled Star Wars figures done in like the old Kenner style, and they're figures that have never been made before, all from A New Hope. And the pre-orders for this went up about a month or two ago, and got my pre-order in from Target. All was right in the world. About 3 weeks ago, pretty much everyone on the planet's pre-order was canceled. Just gone, wiped off the face of the earth. No explanation, no information from Target, no information from Hasbro, just lots of annoyed people. Then they randomly started showing up in stores here and there. Not a lot of them, but a couple of them here and there. And about like 3 or 4 days ago, they would occasionally start showing up online in the morning. And I started reading about people saying like, oh, I got one, or no, I didn't get one, or, just trying to get it into my cart, can't get it through checkout. All that fun stuff. Luckily, got everything through, shipped today, theoretically delivered by Wednesday. Fingers crossed. Your internet's back. How was that for a time, Phil?
That was good. I don't know when it came back, but I really felt it. I was with you along for the ride. So awesome. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. I have confidence, but keep us posted on that one.
We'll do. Hopefully by the next time we do this, it'll be my invention exchange.
I look forward to it. Very excited.
Speaking of which,
let's do it.
Perfectly excellent.
There's a severe lack of Cannonball Run toys in this world. I bet there are some Matchbox cars. Yeah,
there are.
Yeah.
You won't be surprised at who made them either.
What do you mean?
Well, what company made those kind of cars in that era?
Hot Wheels, Matchbox. I don't know.
Ertl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
I have a feeling we might be talking about Ertl later on. But anyway.
Well, and then we'll have to at some point talk about the Cannonball Run 3 because that is beyond bizarre. But let's do our invention exchange. I'll jump in first if you don't mind. Recently, it was, well, I guess it's not so recent anymore, but way back when, upon a time, there was May 4th, which is May the 4th be with you. And Disney parks, Disneyland and Walt Disney World, they like to get in on this action and have some new merch and some limited time items. Now, I was not able to go to the parks during this time, but through Adam Burke and my brother, I was able to get my hands on some of the merch that was released there. And I'm very excited that it is in hand now. So I've got 3 things I want to show off. So starting with first, the most ridiculous thing. So I'm going to show this and I want to ask you if you can guess what this is.
Got it.
I mean, I know you know that it is a Jawa.
It's an Ewok.
Yeah, it's the Ewok. And
does it say
sounds? Very excitable little fellow. So now, what is this besides
it's a popcorn bucket?
That is a good guess, but that is wrong. Because he does not have a lot of space for popcorn.
I just know that's all that happens now. It's just everything's a popcorn bucket now. Is that a cigarette lighter?
No. You're getting warmer though. He is a beverage sipper. So you can just walk around and drink out of your Jawa.
Huh.
He will not be he will never be drunken out of. I apologize, Jawa, but you are purely non-drinking. I think it's crazy too. He's got his little blaster there. Like they went all out on this one. I think he's awesome. I'm super.
Is he holding a thermal detonator?
He is holding. Actually, no. I think it's a what the heck are those things called for the droids?
Training bolt.
Yeah. So he comes with a strap, so you could wear him around your neck and walk around the parks with him and sip to your heart's content. There.
That's not the least bit weird.
That is not the least bit weird, but I love it. Maybe I'll just wear it for the rest of the show. But that is part 1 of 3. So next up on the limited time offerings, when you ordered a beverage, they gave you a
popcorn bucket,
a lightsaber swizzle stick.
A what?
A swizzle stick to swizzle. Swizzle your drinks.
Like a coffee stirrer? Is that what a swizzle stick is?
Sure, it's more for adult beverages. But this is it's pretty neat, and this was from Adam Burke, along with new from the Droid Depot is Clink, like an actual original wind-up droid that they are selling in the parks. And I love these little wind-up guys. They have they have Star Wars droids, known droids, but this is the first time they've done something that was unique and original. And I don't know, I'm pretty psyched to have him.
Is that guy in the park somewhere?
He is
not the toy, the actual thing.
He is not in the parks, no. But it again, I love the Droid Depot. That is my favorite store when we go there. So anytime they have something unique and exclusive to the parks, I'm happy to get my hands on that. And also just a little guide map.
Oh, very nice. Very Disney.
It is very Disney. So yes, thus concludes my invention exchange for today.
What was the popcorn bucket?
There was no popcorn bucket. Oh no, I'm sorry. I did not get there. It was a Death Star popcorn bucket.
I knew there was a popcorn bucket. Everything's a popcorn bucket. It's all ball bearings these days.
It's all ball bearings. And I think in addition to the Death Star one, there might have been like a trooper helmet popcorn bucket, which are good buckets. This guy, Not a good bucket.
You could put some popcorn in there though, if you didn't mind walking around with a headless Jawa.
I would mind.
All right.
What do you got?
Nothing quite that fancy. I've got a couple of new Masters of the Universe figures that showed up a little bit ago, but we haven't talked about them yet.
Okay.
Well, you probably won't know this one because I even barely know this one. So I'm going to bring it into camera in a way to not show its name, because I know you like playing the game as to what is the name of this guy.
Okay. Right. Wow. This guy kind of looks like a clown with that thing around his neck. I don't know. Oh, it says cartoon there. Is that what I'm reading?
Yes. Yeah.
Looks like well, let's start here. He's a bad guy from the thing on his chest.
Yes. Do you know what symbol that is?
It's a bat, right?
Yeah. Do you know whose symbol that is?
Batman.
Yes, correct. Batman.
Correct.
No,
I've seen it before. It's not Zodak. Like, who had that on their chest?
Hordak. You're close.
Hordak. It was a Dak. It was definitely a Dak. So this must be another Dak. He's very muscular. He has very tight pants, and he's got that clown collar. I'm gonna go with Frydak. Oh, I was so close. Yuletide.
Yeah,
Yuletide pleasure fun.
Yeah, this wasn't a figure that happened originally. My understanding is this is mostly a character from the She-Ra cartoon, where the Horde was the main enemy folk. But I think he's a cool looking figure, despite his clown collar. I enjoy him. He's got wings in there too that you can't really see so good. So he showed up. Looking forward to adding him to the shelf because I do love me some of the evil Horde. Speaking of which, the other figure, it's not really a guess because you know who Hordak is.
Yes, we got Hordak now.
This is Hurricane Hordak, which was one of the original vintage figures, and he has kind of like a spinny guy going on there.
Oh, I see that.
And a back metal chest piece.
Oh, very nice.
2 new Masters of the Universe figures, 1 figure closer to completing the original vintage line in the Origin series. Fingers crossed for Too Bad still. No sign of him yet. There is another figure going up for pre-order this weekend, but it's another She-Ra character, Despora, who I don't really know who that is, so I'm probably going to just skip that figure. I don't need that one.
Got it. Hey, did they ever release the I remember the He-Man where you would punch him in the chest and his chest would like rotate?
Battle Armor He-Man and Battle Armor Skeletor. Those both happened, and they have come out in Origins, yes.
Those were fun. Good stuff. Cool. Well, nice pickups.
Yeah, it's good stuff for the most part. Love those vintage figures because harkens back to an earlier time in my life. Oh, we lost Alan again. So anyway, I'm talking about the earlier time in my life, thinking about He-Man and some of those early figures, because a conversation that Alan and I have been having quite a bit lately is about, like, when did we become collectors? I don't know. Maybe we can all find out. So I'm going to push the button, and then hopefully by the time...
Am I back?
Hopefully Alan will be back by the time I'm done pushing the button.
Perfectly
I think I'm back, but I guess I'm not. I'm not back.
All right, are you back?
I'm back. I haven't left from my perspective, but I guess from yours, I'm not here.
You were not there, and you're fuzzy, but you're back. Oh, you're less fuzzy now.
Okay, I'm pseudo here. What can I tell you?
But anyway, like I was saying, we've been talking about this a little bit. When did this start? And kind of like as we started digging into it a little bit, I think we realized that there's no way we can unpack all of this in the span of one episode. So we were talking about how do we kind of split this up into chunks? And it made sense to maybe today start off our collector origin story with what hooked us as children.
So
when did we start?
Dare we start at the beginning is what you're saying?
Sort of, but not I don't even really want to talk about collecting today. I want to talk about the things that inspired eventual collecting, like when we were at those really formative ages and that sort of thing.
playing, when we were just playing.
When it was just fun.
Yes. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited. We were talking about this getting set up for the show. We realized there is a lot to unpack. So this will be fun. I will try to stay grounded and stick at where it all began. And yeah.
So where did it start for you? Like what are some of like the earliest toys that you can remember? Like, yeah, like where did it start? Was it toys? Was that the first thing you have a memory of? Like what was it at the very beginning?
Well,
Tiny
I mean,
Alan.
at the very, very beginning, it was my blankie
Good.
and my stuffed animals. But beyond that, you know, the first thing I actually remember playing with, like I'm sure I played with them, I carried them everywhere. But the first things I remember sitting down and actually playing with as a kid were these little guys here. The Weeble Wobbles, the choking hazards of, you know, our childhood. And again, it's funny, just recently someone shared something about the treehouse on the right,
Mm-hmm.
and it unlocked like core memories for me. I haven't seen or thought of either of these in decades, eons, you know, my entire life. But it came flooding back, like playing with that little door, putting the Weebles in there, the haunted house, like opening it up and playing in there. These were two things that I don't know if they were hand-me-downs or I had them new, but there was a lot of good Allen time spent playing with my Weebles that wobble and don't fall down with these two play sets here.
Yeah, I remember I definitely had something. I couldn't tell you what it is. And I definitely remember playing with this stuff a decent amount. I remember there being some sort of play set where you put the Weeble in something and it would come like shooting out the bottom of it or something like that.
Of course, because they would wobble and they wouldn't fall down. And again, they did not. They never disappointed on that promise. Probably the only toy ever in my life to keep its promise like that. But yeah, there was slides. There was all sorts of fun things for these little guys.
It's also another one of those things that we were talking a little earlier about Little People, the Fisher-Price little People. And to me, these kind of go hand in hand in that I feel like I probably played with them at doctors and dentist offices, like even more than playing with them with other kids.
Oh, I don't ever remember. Like this was, for me, I remember this being like entirely solitary, like me just playing by myself and the Little People. And we both remarked about how like one toy my entire life. Not many.
We lost Alan again, unfortunately. He's definitely having some internet issues this evening. It must be all that rain that we didn't want to talk about earlier. So I will move on to my first toy memories. And I remember these trucks. Like I had these trucks when I was a little kid. Specifically, I had the two in the front. I don't think I had the skip loader looking thing in the back, but I had the one that kind of like digs in the dirt, and I had the dump truck. And I just remember loving these things, and in general, like really liking tractors and trucks when I was a kid. You know, I remember backhoes being something that for whatever reason I was pretty interested in as like, you know, like a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. And the funny thing about these is these outlasted like my playing age of them for a really long time, because they ended up at one of my grandmother's houses. So even when I was, you know, way too old to be playing with these on a regular basis, they existed, and me and my cousins were sometimes would sometimes play with them. And oh, Alan's internet went out completely. Well, that's a handy thing to happen. Oh, wait. No, I think I just heard him come back. Great. Anyway, oh, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah, I think I got a free bowl of soup with my internet. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what's happening tonight, but your trucks.
My trucks, like, and I was just saying that these lived way past the expiration date as far as when a human would normally stop playing with these, because they ended up at my grandparents' house.
Really?
My dad's parents. So when you were there with your cousins, with my cousins and whatnot, you know, these would come out because they were the only toys there, because, you know, no one had toys at their grandmother's house except for like the junk they stopped playing with. And I remember these being there forever. And there was also sort of like I think like a Bionic Woman like hairdresser set that I think was like my aunt's or something like that. And I just remember it was like a pink control board. And that was just another one of those things that just sort of always existed at my grandparents' house.
Fascinating. Yeah, I'd never met you as a truck guy here, so this is interesting to me. I'm learning something new yet again.
Well, I grew out of trucks by the time I was probably like 3, but like, do these look familiar to you at all? Do you remember these?
The motion of the crank thing looks familiar, so I'm sure. I mean, they're Fisher Price. You know, we probably both grew up on Fisher Price. Everyone probably at that time grew up on Fisher Price. But this must have been, if I did play with these, probably very short-lived. The people look more familiar than the trucks themselves, like those bodies, like bigger little people kind of guys, right?
Yeah, when I was looking for this picture today, I found that when I had them, these weren't called Husky Helpers, but eventually this turned into a line called Husky Helpers, and they ended up switching the people to be kind of like bigger, chunkier people with a little bit of articulation. But these are basically just like big little people.
No articulation.
No, just a nub.
How simple it used to be. Yep.
But there was some Fisher Price stuff that had some articulation.
Yeah, and there was, and again, this is where things really changed for me, I think. And I don't know how I ever heard about this. I don't think I was going to the store and picking these out. I think I was just very, very fortunate that my parents would just, like any birthday or anything, there was a new Fisher Price thing. And again, we were talking earlier, some might have been hand-me-downs and some might have been direct from mine. Like the Alpha Probe on the left. I think we've talked about that before. That was my absolute favorite. That survived up until Star Wars and G.I. Joe figures. Boba Fett used to sit in the cockpit at the front and fly that thing around. I still have, like, you know, remnants of it around. The boat at the bottom had a wheel on the bottom, so you could just push it on the carpet and it would go. I think I had the bulk of everything on this page except that van in the top right does not look familiar. But the diver with the octopus, these were so awesome. And again, aptly titled Adventure People, because this is where my imagination really started to go. And like the Weebles were fun, but this is when I really started to play with toys and just imagine things and kind of get lost in that world, man. And seeing them like this is just so glorious. One day I will get that Alpha Probe and the boat I think the boat came with a shark too. There was 2 different boats. There was an older boat that didn't have the thing on the front, and then this boat. There's maybe even many. But did you have any of these growing up?
I had the Alpha Probe, and I remember thinking the main ship was kind of lame because I wanted to play with it with my Star Wars stuff. But that little tiny ship that comes inside, the one that you just held up a second ago, I loved that thing. Like, I thought that was the coolest. I thought it fit right in with Star Wars. All of my Star Wars figures had to go in that. I think I used it as an escape pod a lot because I didn't have the escape pod playset. So that was a big one. I loved that thing. And the main ship hung around forever, but it seemed a little too rooted in reality for me to have it intermingle with the Star Wars stuff as much.
I got it. Did you take the jets off the back of the Alpha Probe and you would stick them on this thing so it had like super jets on it?
I don't remember that. No. I just remember the funny noises that it made when you push the buttons on the wing.
Yeah, that was very short-lived for me. Like that, I guess I liked making my own noises. It was more fun that way. But yeah, I remember, and it had the 2 lights on it. So cool. One day I would like to have that, you know, back in the collection. Cool
so these were kind of like our first toys. Now, before we bridge that gap into like proper action figures, I wanted to talk like a little bit more about some of the other things that you and I have kind of collected over the years, and specifically kind of talking about firsts. And both of us at one point in time were pretty big record collectors. One of us still is a pretty big record collector. So what's kind of like the early memories you have about like records, cassettes, like music, like your first started owning physical media of something.
Yeah, and before I got into the hair metal, poor influence from my brother for a short time period. The first thing that I remember picking up that I listened to over and over and over again, again, we're going back to Disney World, was the official album of Walt Disney World and Disneyland. And yes, it was not a record. I had it on cassette. And this is a picture I'd taken a while back of my actual cassette, because you can see my mom wrote Rappaport on it. So at least we forget whose it was. If you actually listen to this one, at some point I accidentally recorded my own voice over it. So there's like a second or two where it's me saying something to my mom. I'll have to go back and play it and listen to it. But man, I absolutely love this thing. So much so, a little bit of an embarrassing story here, but did you ever have to bring music into school, like second, third grade grammar school, like in music class? That was a thing for us, where the music teacher said, everyone bring in their favorite song, right? Mm-hmm. So I was so excited to bring this in, and I had to decide which song to play, and I was gonna go with the Enchanted Tiki Room. Okay. Little did I know that I was what can I say, like musically stunted at the time. Other people were listening to real music, and they brought in clear cassettes of, like, I don't know, real bands like Jefferson Starship. I don't even know what they brought in, or modern bands. And they were all playing real songs, so that when I gave my tape and we listened to the Tiki Room, everyone laughed at me and made fun of me for that. I was super, super embarrassed. But it was probably a premonition that the music I was going to get into and like was going to be laughed at for the rest of my life. But yeah, this was the cassette I brought in third grade. Came with a little booklet, which right here, that had lyrics to the songs and lots of cool pictures. I had actually forgotten this had existed for a long time until it somehow popped up and I got one off of eBay. But yeah, this was I played this thing out. I still know this by heart. And yeah, eventually I got the Japanese version of this on CD, because I had the album, and then there was a Japanese version released on CD. So if you ever want to borrow it or listen to it, let me know. It's good stuff.
Yeah, we'll let you know. I had a couple of these Orange Disney tapes. The only one I remember was like a Western themed one, where they were kind of singing like basically just like cowboy songs. So I have vague memories of that, but that's about it. I know I had a couple of them just because I mostly remember what they looked like more so than listening to them.
Yeah, and we should have. I'm just thinking about it now. We'll probably have to do a whole nother thing, but man, the books on tape, right? The Star Wars adventures and all those different things, those were probably where I really went from here.
Man, don't even get me started on Planet of the Hoojibs. You know how I am with that.
Yes, but I think we should do an episode and talk specifically about those, because I probably still have some around here somewhere. But yeah, so this was me, all about Disneyland, Disney World. What about you? What was your first, the first thing that caught your ears?
So I couldn't actually narrow it down to just one thing, because there are three of them that are all kind of like, they're not really, they have nothing to do with each other, but they're all tied together as like a really specific, like my first memories of music. Mm-hmm. So the first two is, one was a Disney one, which was the Mickey Mouse Disco record. I don't remember anything on it except for the Macho Duck song. Okay. And I remember listening to that a lot when I was a little kid. Like, again, we're talking, 2, 3, 4 years old. The other one that's more cartoon related is the Chipmunk Punk record, which does not have any punk rock on it.
I was going to ask, is this really a punk rock record? Okay.
Not at all. But there's Tom Petty songs on here. There's Queen songs on here. Okay. There's 3 songs by The Knack. There's My Sharona, Good Girls Don't, and Frustrated. There's a lot of solid songs on here. And to this day, the reason that I'm probably a Tom Petty fan is because they did a version of Refugee on this record that has been in my head for, forever, for my entire adult existence.
Punk adjacent, I'd give it. Tom Petty always had a pass for me too, because he had skateboarding in Free Falling video. So I'm like, hey, this guy's okay.
Yeah, my dad really liked Tom Petty, but I had a Tom Petty song on this one. Again, Queen's on here. There's a bunch of stuff on here that, like, I actually listened to this not that long ago just to kind of refresh myself with it. The Blondie, "Call Me" by Blondie is one of the songs they do on this.
Interesting. Okay,
For a
that's always
kid's
good.
record, it's fun. It's just really cool.
I would say "Good Girls Don't" is a kind of risque song for Chipmunk Punk, is it not?
They certainly used the radio version of the lyrics of that song, but yes, it's a little weird.
Okay,
but it was the 70s. What are you gonna do?
cool. And nothing, just Macho Macho Duck is the only one.
The only one I remember from the Mickey Mouse Disco record.
I feel like these both have to be available digitally or somewhere, right? I'm curious to go take a look at the track list of that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Chipmunk Punk, I think, came out on CD from like the Chipmunks fan club like 15 years ago or something like that, but I don't have it. And my copy of this is pretty beat up, but I listened to it on YouTube just to kind of remind myself.
I love the punk like photo of them, like in front of the brick wall, the guitar in the garbage can, like no one looking straight ahead. It's great.
The spray paint. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Cool.
But like these two were early records that were important, but the most important record I ever listened to in my whole entire life was also during this time period. And that is the Blues Brothers album, Briefcase Full of Blues. This is a picture of my childhood copy, which I still have. There is nothing that has probably had more influence in my life than this record. The whole reason I like music is because of this record and how obsessed I was with it when I was a little kid.
So what are your top tunes off of this one?
So it's funny. I don't know if you ever had one of these. When I was maybe 5 years old, my parents bought one of those books where you have to fill in answers to questions so that you can go like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your favorite color? What's this? Okay. What's that? So I still have that book. Like it's up in my attic somewhere. And on that, I say that my favorite song is a Blues Brothers song on here called Rubber Biscuit, which as a kid, I knew it as I called it Bow Bow Bow, because that was kind of like, it's kind of a song full of like gibberish words. Like there's no actual real lyrics to it. But that's one of my favorites. The entire first side of the record is flawless with Hey Bartender, Messing with the Kid, Almost. Then that goes right into Rubber Biscuit. The Soul Man is on here. B-Movie, like every song on this is just ingrained in my head and it's I think one of the reasons why I've always been partial to bands that have horns in them is also because of this. So my love of Rocket from the Crypt with that horn section, you can trace that to this.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Very, very cool. You know, oddly enough, this is one record that I do not know, because I know we're not getting into the collecting side, but I went through a long period of collecting 80s movies soundtracks. And I don't think I've ever had Blues Brothers in the collection. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't on HBO, so I didn't know it as well as you did. But I'm curious to check this one out now. So I got to write down Chipmunk Punk and the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, this is the album. There was also, this isn't the soundtrack to the movie. Okay. The soundtrack to the movie is a different record of theirs. Okay. But this one's my favorite.
So which came first for you, the movie or this album?
They both kind of always existed. I mean, chronologically, this came out before the movie. The movie came out in 1980. This came out in 1978. I don't remember it, but my mom said she did take me to see the movie in the theater when it came out, because I was already like a really big fan of this. Like I loved this. So, Blues Brothers is the only favorite movie I've ever had in my whole entire life. I don't know a time in my life when that wasn't my favorite movie.
Interesting. So what was your exposure to this then growing up?
No one knows. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to ask your parents some questions, but you probably figured they wouldn't know the answer. No one, like my mom and dad both don't know. My mom thinks it was her because she liked watching them on Saturday Night Live. But no one remembers.
Like, did you just stumble upon this in like your parents' record collection, or you purchased this?
I wasn't purchasing records when I was 2.
Okay. So it was there and you gravitated and latched onto it.
I guess, again, I don't really know. Like I've always owned this record, you know, like at the very in the bumper for this, There's a picture of you with the slave one. There's a picture of me sitting in front of like my old record player, which was the Disco Dance Machine record player. I listened to this record on that record player. Like I've always had it.
That's wild. Like we need to investigate this more. I would love to get back to like where all this started. Like you said, you ask your parents. I love to ask my parents, like, why were you buying this stuff? Like, who knows? But
yeah,
very
I don't
cool.
know. But those are my early music memories. The other thing that, and you are certainly more current with this than I am, but I know we both probably got exposed to video games at a pretty early age. We're like right at that age where like the home systems first kind of started happening.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that because my first video game system was the ColecoVision.
Okay.
And I loved the ColecoVision. The version of Donkey Kong for it was great. There was this Pac-Man ripoff called Mousetrap that was, to this day, is still one of my absolute favorite games. It had a Smurf game that was really cool. A Frogger was on it. Q*bert was on it with the little profanity speech bubble.
Yes.
ColecoVision was the best. And that was like my first home video game system.
Yeah, I have faint memories of ColecoVision. I never owned one, but I had my parents' friends, like they'd go over their house and they had kids there. I think her name was Tara. It was a very, very long time ago, but they had Coleco and I would play it there. But for me, for whatever reason, I grew up with Intellivision, which
you had like the disc, right?
It had the disc, it had the number pad. What I think it probably predates ColecoVision, because I think ColecoVision had better graphics and probably more power to it. But when I was thinking, when we're talking about video games and going back there, I played a lot of Intellivision, but I don't think it was until the NES that I really became like a video game gamer. You know, the Intellivision was fun, we did have combat too. I think my dad was really big on the video games when I was growing up because we had a lot of weird systems, but television. And then I know I'm getting out of order, but like one of the things we were talking about is when did we stop playing with toys? And I think it was when the NES rolled around that a lot of my toys kind of got put to the side and I spent my time playing video games.
Yeah, I was really into ColecoVision. We played ColecoVision a lot. So the ColecoVision controller is a lot like the Intellivision controller,
but it had a nub, right?
stick instead of the nub. So I think the Intellivision controller, you had to like squeeze the two things on the side to like jump, right?
It was not made for human hands. No, not at all.
That's the thing. My younger brother, who's 4 years younger than me, he would move the person and he would have to stop and use both hands to hit the thing. Like super impressive that a child that young could figure that out. And he was almost as good as I was. And I could actually use it in one hand.
What games were you playing? Like was it the ones you just talked about? Like Mouse?
Yeah. Those were kind of the big ones I remember. And the other one is I remember Frogger 2, which
Electric Boogaloo. Yeah.
No, 3 Deep it was called. That was something.
Frogger 2, 3 Deep. Okay.
Yeah. But and Popeye was another one.
Popeye was great. I played that on the NES. I didn't have that on any other system, but I still love that game.
We probably only had like 10 games. So it was basically those same ones. Like I didn't have Zaxxon, which is probably, other than Donkey Kong, the most famous ColecoVision game. Mm-hmm. But the ones that we had, we played them over and over and over and over again. And the ColecoVision ended up at my grandparents on my mother's side. And at some point in time, my grandfather just threw it away. And to this day, my mom is so angry that he threw that ColecoVision away without checking with anyone.
These things were not cheap way back when. They had to be, they had to be expensive. And in television, I remember playing with my brother, this tank combat game, which was rough. I think a lot of the Intellivision games we were on. We played Math Fun together, which was math, but was not fun. And then Astro Smash. I think there was like a Space Invaders clone. but good times.
It was good times. And I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit more about video games and probably more specifically the Nintendo era stuff, maybe in a future episode. But I kind of want to start moving into the action figure realm because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, like our first big action figure line, some of the other big ones of that era, and then some of the weirder ones. And, you know, we're 40 minutes in. So I just kind of want to kick it off with,
let's do it.
Star Wars. I mean, that's what started it for me. That's the first action figures that I remember, and certainly the first ones where I clamored for many of them. I don't remember my first one. I don't remember how I got into them. So like the earliest memory I have of Star Wars action figures is when I went to go see The Empire Strikes Back when I was a kid. My parents took me to a drive-in to see it. And I have this super vivid memory of them being like, hey, we got a surprise for you tonight. Can you guess what it is? And my guess was, did you get me the Yoda figure?
Okay.
So I knew who Yoda was. I knew there was a figure of him. And I hadn't actually seen Empire Strikes Back yet because they were like, no, we're going to go take you to see the movie. So somewhere in there is when that started for me.
So weird, right? Like, again, I wish we took better notes. I wish there was historical documents that we could go back and figure it out. Because again, we started talking about this and yeah, there's nothing that I could go back to aside from thinking I grew up with an older brother, and I think, you know, he must have had A New Hope figures because we were talking about the droid factory play set and things like that I distinctly remember playing with, but I would have been too young, I think, to be given that directly.
So we were talking earlier that like because you and I are a couple of years apart. We're almost exactly 2 years apart. And I was saying that like I figured like Empire probably hit really hard for you.
Yeah, and I don't have memories of it all. And if anything, I grew up with definitely Star Wars was the main thing. And then I think my parents got me anything that was sci-fi related under the sun. But I also loved it. Like I loved Buck Rogers, you know, watching that on TV. So I had Buck Rogers toys. I had random space toys that I knew nothing about. So either I was groomed by my parents to be like a sci-fi kid, or I just really, really loved sci-fi and gravitated towards it as a child. I did not see Empire in the theaters, or at least if I did, I have no memory of it. The only memory I have is seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater. But yeah, my whole life was basically Star Wars.
Star Wars, seeing Empire is also very important because as a precursor to most of the rest of my life, we missed the beginning of the movie because I had to go to the bathroom.
Very apropos for you.
Yeah. So we came in when Luke was hanging upside down from the Wampa and he was using the Force to get the lightsaber. And I asked my dad what was going on because I didn't understand it. Why is the lightsaber moving? And he told me that Darth Vader was under the snow pulling it.
Oh, how long did that stay with you?
A long time. Way longer than you think.
Kids on the playground. Like, no, Darth Vader was under the snow for reasons unknown. Okay.
But Star Wars is definitely the gateway drug to action figures. And what are some of like before we get into some of the wacky stuff, before we get into some of the one-offs or some of the more obscure lines, what are some of like the big toy lines of that era that you kind of went into after Star Wars? Like what was your next move as far as like the kind of action figures that you were playing with?
Yeah. And again, it was for me that time, like everything played together. I don't know how you played with your toys, but like anything I had was all fair game, unless there was some weird height differences. Cause there was some, like, I think the Buck Rogers figures were a little smaller than the Star Wars figures, but like I said, Boba Fett, he flew around in the Fisher-Price Alpha Probe. So everything kind of came together there. So we're not going to go far beyond, right? We want to stick to right there.
Stick to the big ones. Like we'll start with one that you and I both had and have talked about affection for, like G.I. Joe. Like to me, that's the next logical step after Star Wars as far as like a big successful line goes.
Yeah, and G.I. Joe and Star Wars, they did play together a lot in my universe. It was a little weird, but again, those early G.I. Joe sets like that, I remember having a tank. I don't even know if it was a real G.I. Joe tank. It was motorized. It could go forward and backwards.
What color was it?
It was green, as tanks are.
They're not, because actually the two main GI Joe tanks, the first one, the Mobat, was green, and then there was another one a couple years later called the Mauler that was tan, and that's actually the one I had.
So mine was definitely green. It was motorized, and I just remember it going slowly forwards and backwards. I remember also, I don't know when GI Joe got the Kung Fu grip, but I know I had figures prior to the Kung Fu grip.
Oh, so before the swivel arm, yeah.
So they may have been.
That's the 82. The original 82 line didn't do that, and then in 83 they were reissued with the swivel.
Yeah, so that's where I remember. Yeah, GI Joe was definitely huge for me for a short period of time, and then Mask was much later though. So I think we'll
talk a little bit about that later. So for me, GI Joe was probably the next one that I remember being really big, and then kind of at the same time was when He-Man and Transformers kind of broke in. He-Man is probably the line that at the end of the day I had the most figures of. Like, I think I had, like, if I go back and try and like look at how many He-Man figures came out and how many of them I had, especially like the first few years, I had a lot of them. Like, you know, I definitely did pretty good when it came to He-Man. I had a decent amount of Transformers, but I think just Transformers were just a lot more expensive than He-Man toys were. So I didn't have a ton of those. I had like a lot of the little ones and a couple of the big ones. You know, I had Optimus Prime, I had Soundwave, I had Grimlock, I had Starscream. I think those are the only bigger ones I had. I think pretty much everything else I had was the little guys.
Yeah, see, this is another era I would love to dig and find out what happened, because He-Man, like, I had Skeletor, He-Man, like maybe whatever the main figures were. I had Castle Grayskull, and then that just like kind of dropped off a cliff for me. And I don't know why. Transformers, never. I had a handful of them, but I never had Optimus Prime. I never had Megatron?
Megatron. I never had Megatron either. I think it's because he was a gun, and I don't think my mom was stoked on that.
Yeah, that is super weird though. How do you play with that once he transforms? But anyway. Yeah. And then those I was still playing with toys. I think I must have. We should have brought up a spreadsheet and put down years and try to figure this out. But yeah, like I don't know if my younger brother maybe took things over, because then I think he got into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He had the real Ghostbusters, and that was just as I was starting to focus on other things, I guess.
Yeah, the other one that I had a lot of was the LJN WWF figures, the big rubber ones.
Okay.
Like I had like a lot of those. Just like the first 3 or 4 series of those, I had almost all of them. Again, when I look back at like checklists and stuff like that, because I've been watching wrestling since 1985 or 86. And I had a bunch of those figures as well. And again, along with like Hot Wheels, I had a lot of
I forgot about the Hot Wheels too. Yeah.
I had a lot of Micro Machines. I don't know if you remember those too much.
I remember them, but I did not have them. Only the Star Wars sets.
Oh, that's way later.
Yeah. But I remember the wrestling figures were not articulated. They were just like chunks of rubber,
they were just weapons.
And they hurt, right? Because inevitably you're getting hit with one and it hurt a lot.
Yeah, and like there's nothing you can really do with them except like smash them together, so the paint just gets like ripped off of all of them. Like they all end up looking like they're naked because like the paint of their trunks starts coming off.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
I've spoken before about my friend who had the USS Flag. He had those wrestling figures, and those were tossed across the room with like reckless abandonment, and you would have put in the head. They were heavy. They really hurt. Yep.
Yeah. And then as much as I could, I like anytime I saw a Godzilla anything, I wanted it. You know, I had the small Imperial figure, I had the large Imperial figure, I had the Shogun Warrior one, which we'll talk a little bit in a second. And also at some point, this is a little later. This is not quite childhood, but it's related to Godzilla. Is one of the kids in my neighborhood named Jason.
Hey, my guy was named Jason too, with the flag. Same guy.
I don't know. I don't want to say his last name because I don't think
I don't want to say his last name either. Yeah. Started with a W?
No, not him.
No, okay.
So Jason's dad went to Japan and brought him back the Godzilla 1984 Bandai figure. And I don't know what I traded Jason for it, but Jason traded me that figure for something, or maybe I just bought it from him. I don't know. It was a little older. I was probably maybe like 12 or 13 or like whatever grade you are in, like whatever age you are in 7th and 8th grade. That's when I got that from him. But if I was his dad, I would be so annoyed that he traded away that
Probably
Godzilla
a
from
little pissed
Japan.
about that one. But
No.
score for you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no,
Suck
good
it,
stuff.
Jason. Right?
So, before we get into the weirdo stuff, is there any other like big things that you remember, or at least more memories of those lines? Because to me, those are kind of the biggest lines. That and maybe add Thundercats to the mix, which I only had one. I no two. I had Panthro and Mumra, and that's it.
Yeah, no, it's like, again, I would have liked to have done this like surgically, where we went through the years, because there's kind of like just a weird spot, and I want to blame it on video games, but I feel like those still weren't, like, the NES probably wasn't as prevalent during this times. I did get into skateboarding, which definitely screwed up my toy playing, but I think I was probably around 12 or 13 at the time. So I think there's still some years where there's kind of a fuzzy gap for me with things I got into. Star Wars, like you said, that was the core. That was what the birthday presents were. That's where the real excitement was. G.I. Joe. I love G.I. Joe. I love the vehicles from G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Like, just amazing stuff that I'm sad that I have none of it these days. And then the little He-Mans, the little Transformers, but no, nothing else big at that time.
No, but one thing that the 80s had a lot of was wacky toy lines that are not remembered maybe quite as fondly, or as by as many people. But there were so many toy lines that I had, either a decent amount of them or like one figure for, and just like crazy stuff. So I'm going to bring up Mr. Screen Share again. I want to kind of just go through a whole bunch of these ones that you and I were kind of kicking around.
Let's do it. Yeah, because like I said, this is where I would love to be able to talk to my parents about like what was going on.
So the first one is like, actually, this was the first one we both almost immediately brought up when we were talking about some of the weirder ones, is the muscle toys, the millions of unusual small creatures lurking everywhere. Yeah. I had so many of these for decades. I would randomly find these in boxes.
Same here, like until till a few moves, but you'd always find some. And this is one of the toughest ones for me to resist. Like I'm always tempted to kind of go down this rabbit hole and start picking these guys up. But when you look at it like this, it's just like a thing of absolute beauty.
Yeah, I loved these. I had the garbage cans. That seemed to be like that, getting the garbage cans of them. And they used to also have them at the grocery store.
Like
when
a
you put the quarter
or something.
No way, you
put them in the gumball machines. Wow,
yeah,
I don't think I ever saw that. So I had the garbage cans and the 4-packs. I don't think I ever had that big starter set. Did you have that?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I had one a couple years ago. Like, I just ended up with one, but they weren't pink. They were multicolored. And for me, muscles are pink. I do not want any other color. I have no interest in any other color.
See, I'm not opposed to the colors. Like the bulk of what I had, absolutely pink. But then I had some purple ones. I don't think I had a lot of colored ones, but
yeah. But I had the championship belt that you could wear with the little ring in it. I had the ring with the forks that you could stick the guys on.
That broke. I think we talked about that on the previous episode. Yeah.
It's just like, I loved these stupid figures. And again, I loved wrestling. Like, I've always really liked wrestling. And a lot of my other figures turned into wrestling figures. Like my G.I. Joe figures, they wrestled all the time.
They wrestled. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, no, keep going if we're talking about muscles.
Yeah, no, I was not into wrestling, but for something about muscles, like, I don't know how did we even find out about these? Was it just commercials? We saw them in the store? Like,
probably,
what was it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but these guys, I just absolutely loved to death.
Yeah. Another group of figures that I used as wrestlers a lot. And this is one of those toy lines that, again, I had a bunch of these when I was a kid, probably because they were cheap, because they were small. And today, one of the collections I have that I'm most proud of is my Battle Beasts collection. I loved these stupid figures, and they were really portable. So I brought them everywhere. I even remember, again, we don't want to talk too much about collecting, but even in high school, I remember trying to kind of get my hands on some of these again. I love these stupid figures.
Yeah, it's funny. You brought up a good point. Things like the Battle Beasts and things like Muscles, I feel like they're meant to spark that part in your brain where, like, I have to get more. There's so many, you got to catch them all, kind of a thing. Because I did have Battle Beasts, not not a huge collection, but I remember them being super, super cool. And I know you spent a long time chasing these down.
Yeah, the brutal part being that there's a whole bunch of them that never got released in America, and they get progressively harder to find. So there's like a group of 12 that's kind of hard to find, and then there's another group of 12 that's it's pretty hard to find, and then there's this final group of 12, like they only came out in Japan, and they're called Laser Beasts. Those last chunks. I paid big money for some of those figures. Luckily, I did it a long time ago, so they're actually even more expensive now, but completing my Battle Beasts and Laser Beasts collection was tough, and even still it's not totally complete. A couple of the Laser Beasts have reproduction weapons because like I just can't afford to drop $500 on a gun.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I mean these definitely bring back good memories though. What year was this when these kids were
88 I believe was the first year, maybe 87, but I think it was 88.
Yeah, because I think that's got to be about the time when I wasn't playing with toys as much, but I know, like I had these, like the reindeer guy with his little carrot drill arm.
Yeah,
like, he jumps out at me. But I didn't have a lot of these, but they're definitely very, very cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you were mentioning that you did have a bunch of mask stuff, right? Again, this is one of those things where I had one and my brother had one. I had the Rhino and my brother had the Thunderhawk, and that's it.
No, I was very, very spoiled because I had the bulk of these growing up, and man, these what just awesome toys. And I know they're being reissued and they're coming out in new waves. It's going to be hard to resist. The only reason I'm good on it because a lot of these are the ones that I love were the second wave. They weren't the first wave, so we'll see when they get to them. But man, these were just fantastic. And like I said, I was digging through and I found some random old figures from this set.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. I was into these heavily. I don't know why. Like I thought that I wouldn't be into the smaller figures since I was so accustomed to G.I. Joe and Star Wars, but I thought they were awesome, just tiny little guys.
Again, I only had 2 of them, but they wrestled each other because that's just
that seems to be an ongoing theme there, the wrestling. So
the one other toy line that I had, I won't even say a decent amount, but between my brother and I, we had 4 of the 8 wheeled warriors that were possible. And again, I loved these toys and I loved the stupid cartoon. I have this really vivid memory of going over to a friend's house for a sleepover birthday party that he had, which is probably when I was in the 2nd grade. If I, based on what school I was in, it was probably the 2nd grade. And they showed, they were playing Gremlins. That was the movie that they were all going to watch. And like, I wasn't allowed to watch Gremlins. I had to stay upstairs, like with like one other kid. And I just remember playing with Spike Trike because he had Spike Trike, which I didn't have. But yeah, I love these figures. When I kind of started getting heavily back into toy collecting again, this was actually the first line that I started hunting down.
Yeah. And were you successful in finding them?
Yeah. I got them all pretty quickly and pretty cheaply.
Okay.
It's the parts. Like I had to buy so many lots of them to get pieces of them and then get rid of the rest of it.
So help me out with this, because these I don't think I ever played with. I mean, they don't look familiar to me at all. The only thing that looks familiar is that little blue guy in the artwork, like kind of crawling like a robot dog there in the front.
Yeah.
Was there a vehicle of him at some point?
No, he is a vehicle. He's like this big, and the other vehicles go on top of him. He's like he's like a walker. He's like an addict.
He looks really familiar. The vehicles, though, I don't know. Guess about what year these were?
Again, probably like 85, 86, 87, somewhere in there.
And was there a show for Wheeled Warriors?
Yeah, it was called Jace and the Wheeled Warriors.
Yeah, I don't know. This one, I must have been sick this week.
But the commercial for Wheeled Warriors is again one of those, Wheeled Warriors, quick changing fighting machines.
Mm-hmm.
You could stack and attack. No,
very, very familiar. But again, I don't think I ever played with these guys.
No, they were good.
Cool though. That's awesome that you tracked them all down. They look absurd, so it looks like a lot of fun.
So I think now we go into kind of like the lightning round.
Okay.
of just like more random ones. And we're starting off with yours, which you had mentioned. This might be
Yeah,
live.
this is definitely one of the oldest things I still have in my collection right here. And I have no memories of Space 1999, but I know that my brother and I both had these ships, and it's die cast. I mean, mine's beat up, like I was showing you earlier. One of the doors is gone. I got this thing here. It drops its little cargo hold.
Ah.
But yeah, again, I love this thing. I played with this so much. I was even missing some of the landing jets there.
And you were saying you think that's probably the oldest toy you still have, right, from your childhood?
Yeah, between that, the Weeble Wobbles, and some of the little Fisher Price guys. I think this one, because it says 1974 on it. So 50-year-old toy right here. It's probably lead paint and whatnot. So maybe I'll put it over there for a little bit.
The oldest toy that I have still that I had as a kid. This is my Blues Brothers Ertl car, which again I played with. Like you can kind of see, it's completely beaten to heck.
Were there police lights on that one, or a bell, or
no? It's just the Bluesmobile. And I used to play with it in those Hot Wheels suitcase play sets.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember those? They were it turned into like a bi-level thing with like a little ramp.
Mm-hmm. I
played with it in that a lot.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, we didn't even really talk about Hot Wheels and stuff, but I had tons of those. But yeah, this ship, I forgot what it's actually called. It's called Home or something. I don't know. This one, the picture you have is interesting because it's got yellow things on
little
the
doodads. Yeah,
yellow doodads, or my doodads are red. So cool. Again, whether I was I gravitated towards sci-fi, or my parents turned me into a sci-fi kid. I loved spaceships. We've talked in the past my affection for moon buggies and things like that. But this is my DNA right here.
Sorry.
You're right there. Car get away from you.
So, for me, one of those early ones that, again, I only had one, the guy on the left, actually, Sectors. And they were the thing he was riding was a puppet. You put it on your hand.
Oh, that's
and then you
awesome.
kind of walked around with it. Mm. And the thing that I actually remember most about the Sectors was the commercials, because the commercials were kind of episodic. They were like to be continued, and they told the story. And I remember when I was a kid, one night in the evening, which is usually when night happens, they ran the Muppet Babies episode where they did Star Wars. They kind of made a big deal about that and showed that in prime time. And I remember very specifically that during the airing of that, they showed every single Sectors commercial in order through the various.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I just remember just thinking like that was way more exciting to me than the Muppet Babies thing was. But these were cool. Only had the one figure. My brother also had one figure. That was kind of the gimmick, is like we would each get one so we could play with each other in that universe.
Seems to have worked. Yep.
But I didn't play with it that much because I didn't cross-pollinate my toys as much.
No, those look super, super weird. Okay, we're moving quick. Again, spaceships. If it was anything to do with a spaceship, it's somehow I was fortunate to get my hands on it. And this thing I remember making tons of like crazy sounds and stuff. I remember just carrying it by like that centerpiece and just like running around. This possibly was another hand-me-down because I feel like I would have been really, really young when this had come out. But man, I just loved playing it. I would just fly around the house with this. Loved my spaceships there. I had it like this one. I didn't remember this. Like as I was just trying to do some research and find my toys, I'm like, oh my God, that's the thing. I had that thing, which is always fun, or used to be fun when we would go to the toy shows, because that's what we would see a lot. Yeah. Like, oh my God, remember that before the Funko invasion? Yeah.
Before the dark times.
Well, yeah. I mean, now it's like Black Series, G.I. Joe, and Funkos. I miss finding like the stuff, and maybe that time has passed where we used to see a lot of these really cool old vintage things. But yeah, so many memories of this.
Good stuff. Yeah, I don't know this one at all. Until you sent me this picture, I'd never even seen it.
Yeah, I have a feeling all of these at least all of my toys that took batteries suffered the ill fate of like batteries were left in them and they were just destroyed. But yeah, this was good stuff.
Cool. So this is another one where I had one figure. I had Max Steel, who is kind of like the bottom left hand one, the white one with his arms raised. These are really cool looking little guys, and this is one of those things where I've often fought the urge to try to start collecting them again, but getting them with their weapons is complicated. But this is how all there are. There's not really that many of them, so I've debated it. Like again, I think they're just goofy looking.
Yeah, and they did the hug thing, right?
Yeah.
So, this blows my mind. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, how did I not have these? And maybe I did and just don't remember them. I remembered. How did you get them to squeeze? Like, what did you?
There was like a little trigger on the back.
Okay, yeah, I remember that, and they're little suction cup butts, right?
Yeah, there's a new series of them being released right now, but like I don't like them. They're not. They don't look like this. They're too modern, and the interpretation is one that I'm just not interested in. But like I've often wanted to kind of go back and recollect these figures.
Yeah, these look again. These are totally something that I would have loved as a kid. And I mean, obviously, you couldn't have everything, but this is weird that I don't have memories of these guys.
I just have one.
What's that?
I just had the one.
Yeah, they're definitely cool. RoboForce. Ah, yes, another hand-me-down. Or I was too stupid to know how to get this thing to work because it never did whatever it was supposed to do. And I think it might have been more my user error for me. But this is probably where my love of like moon buggies and three-wheeled vehicles came from. This thing just drove all over the place by force and not well, because again, I didn't understand the programming. So I'm fairly certain this was my older brother's toy. I didn't even notice now that is the Le Véhicule Électronique.
Yeah, I actually found a box that had the English on it, but it was gray and not white. And I didn't know if that was the same one or not.
Yeah, I don't remember the color. I don't remember exactly. I know it had a basket thing that you could hook on the back, but I don't know that we had that or that was lost. But yeah, like again, sci-fi stuff. This might actually have been a hand-me-down for my cousin too. So
yeah, this is another one. I don't know this one at all. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of these must have been my older brother, my older cousin, like just their kind of stuff. Again, this one, I don't know what any of those numbers did. I guess you can program it to go in a certain direction. Manual was gone and my brain couldn't figure it out, or it was broken and didn't work. The big track.
So this is a toy line. This is another one. I really wish I could collect this now, but they're super expensive. Dino Riders were basically these little, the guys were about the size of Mask guys, and they rode these dinosaurs. And this is another one of those things where I think I had either one or two of them, but I don't remember if my brother had the other one or if it was technically mine. But I don't even see the main one that I had on here. Oh, it's kind of at the bottom, the Deinonychus down there on the bottom right. I had that one. Okay. And I think my brother had the pterodactyl one on the right hand side as well. They were really cool. I wish I had more. The big ones are gigantic.
Really?
And they're the Tyrannosaurus is like this big. It is huge.
That's a heck of a risk for a toy line. Again, was there any tie into this? Was it a show or?
There was a cartoon, but I don't even know if it was on TV. I think it was just maybe on VHS tapes. So there were like a handful of episodes. I don't remember ever watching it. I just remember having those couple of figures and just kind of wishing I had more.
It's crazy to think that our parents just went to the store and be like, hey, here's a guy riding a dinosaur. I'm going to just get this.
I think I asked for most of this stuff.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, because like I watched a lot of TV and like I'm very into commercials. I like commercials were very powerful for me when I was a kid. I remember most of them. I don't remember specifically commercials for Dino Riders, but I would be very surprised if they just randomly got it for me without me having some sort of interest in it.
Yeah. I don't know. This is just wild stuff. It's amazing to me how much stuff I had and then how much stuff like this that I just had no idea was even out there.
No.
Oh, yes. Any of these ring a bell for you at all?
we had some constructs. My brother had them. I didn't have any of these, but my brother had some constructs, but not like space ones. They were just like general building ones.
Yeah. So the out of the three, if I had to pick one that was my favorite, it was the robotics. And those were mine. The constructs were, I think, mine and my younger brother's, but they were all space and we built like crazy things. But robotics, I actually still have a lot of them. But this was like amazing. I remember building the thing that's on the box with the movable jaw. You had like a little control panel, so some of the things could move. But man, it was just such cool stuff. I got still some of the dudes that came with it around here. Yay! Man, this is where I spent a lot of time with the robotics. Again, constructs. Capsella was one that I think was a hand-me-down. I still have a lot of those parts. Probably not enough to actually build something, and I would even be floored if any of it still worked at this point. It was so we would build things and then put them in the bathtub, and I'm not sure if you really were supposed to do that. But yeah, this again, I didn't put Lego in here because everybody had Lego, right? But we
had Lego and we had Lincoln Logs. Those are the only building things we had.
There weren't a lot of space sets for Lincoln Logs that I remember, though.
No, not so much. Mostly just logs.
Yeah, and you could build a house. I remember building lots of houses.
It didn't even come with Lincoln. All you got was the logs.
Just his logs.
No.
But yeah, I loved those sets so much. And now these terrifying things, though. Boglins.
I don't have much to say about these. I had one. I thought it was a weird toy line. I didn't love it then, but it's just one of those things.
I didn't love it then, and I don't love it now. But
yeah, but I had one, and it was weird.
Do their eyes light up like that?
Not that I remember. Maybe they glowed in the dark. I don't remember that being the case. I had one of the smaller ones. They had big ones and small ones. I had one of the little ones, and it was kind of goofy.
New for 1987.
They were new.
They were new. What were they? Just heads?
Yeah, just like little hand puppet guys.
Yeah. I don't know if you're picking up on a theme here, but
right.
It was all about.
So you like cowboys?
I was totally into cowboys.
Right.
I'll focus on the two on the left here, which was the laser scope and the Twinkie like remote control things. Those were huge for me. The laser scope was the one I feel like we've talked about this before, so I'll make it brief. You could look through a screen on the back and it would show you, whatever you're looking at in your room, and you could pull a trigger and like a red dot would appear on the screen and make a really annoying laser sound as if you were actually shooting things. So the very first kind of like virtual reality type of a toy that I ever had. And yeah, I walked around with that thing in front of my face, shooting everybody. And the Twinkie thing, he's actually a balloon that goes into a remote controlled base. So you could kind of like, and I think he was one of those remote control toys that went forward, and then when you put the button, went backwards and turned. So like that was all that he really had. But yeah, I was so in love and enamored with spaceships and sci-fi, Buck Rogers, Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars. I just could not get enough of this growing up.
Yeah, I think I missed a lot of those TV show ones. Like I don't remember Battlestar Galactica. I don't remember Buck Rogers. I feel like I might have seen them here and there in like reruns, but I have no memories of them. And I definitely didn't have any of these toys.
Yeah. And these figures, I remember breaking. Like, I don't know what it was. I feel like they were a little bit smaller than regular figures, but you can see kind of the metal pins in them. I mean, they might not have even been metal, but I remember these broke a lot. So the only figure I think I still have is actually Twinkie himself. Such a shame because I don't know if they were cool, but just be neat to have.
The next one on my list, again, I have almost nothing to say. But I had one of these Starriers, which were basically these like little robot-y, monster-y guys about this big. They often, I think, had like wind-up features and things like that. They were fun, but not the most exciting thing in the world.
All right. Did you change? Because I think I'm flickering here.
Oh yeah, I just talked a little bit about the one Starrier I had. It was not the most exciting line in the world, but like in hindsight, looking at them now, again, I covet them, but I don't know that I necessarily need them.
No, yeah. Again, I I like to see the actual toys versus these drawings here to see if anything rings a bell. But
yeah, they were neat,
cool.
but not the most important thing in the world. All right, so we're wrapping up with our last two.
Okay. Do you remember these at all? Crystar?
I didn't have any, but I vaguely remember them, but I also think I confused them with Visionaries a little bit.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those things where I don't know. I don't know how I would have gotten into this aside from my parents just like, here is a new action figure. And yeah, I remember his helmet coming off and I would constantly lose that. So most of the time playing with these was trying to find his helmet. I did not have those dragon guys in the back there, but I definitely had Crystar, and he was such a cool figure, like because he was transparent, and it just looked super, super neat. Good stuff, but probably not long lived in my toy box.
Yeah. So my last one is one of those toy lines that I was a little too young for. But my love of Godzilla brought me to get a Godzilla Shogun Warrior figure. I think my mom found one at like a garage sale or something like that. And then as a result of that, I ended up getting the one all the way on the right, Guy King, from when my uncle got married, my aunt's brother had Guy King and gave it to me. So I just had the two of them. But again, I love these figures. And again, like you can see behind me, like I have a decent amount of them now. I have all the US ones. There's a billion Japanese ones that I could never afford. They go for tens of thousands of dollars, but you know, they're 2 foot tall. The arm shoots out. Love me some Shogun Warriors.
Yeah, they're cool. And I don't know what line and what figures they were. Some of these did invade my world as well, but I think they were mostly smaller ones, and
they did make smaller metal versions as well.
Yeah.
But I was always enamored with like the big plastic chunky ones.
Yeah, I just remember like the arms going up and down, like that was basically all you had.
Missiles shooting out of their fingers and things like that.
Cool.
A glorious time was had by all.
Man, we had good times. Those were good days.
I feel like toys like that. I feel like you don't have like that the sheer randomness of toys that used to exist back then.
I wonder, like, I don't know what's happening these days. Losing Toys R Us is kind of rough. Like, there's nowhere to just go and browse. There's Target and there's some other stores, but.
And again, like we didn't even really get into like the things that we were influenced by our siblings. Like you had an older brother and a younger brother. I had a younger brother. Through my younger brother, I have an affection for, like Ninja Turtles, which is, I'm a little too old for Ninja Turtles to be in like that key thing, but he was the perfect age for it. And I really enjoyed those. He and I kind of split the difference on the real Ghostbusters. I was a little too old, but not that old, but most of the real Ghostbusters toys that we had were his. And then earlier on, like he played a lot with like, he had like Glowworm and the Glow Friends and Care Bears and things like that. And my youngest brother, who's 14 years younger than me, I even have an affinity for some of his stuff because he was really into the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I really dig those Power Ranger toys. And, obviously there's sort of like, the Japanese, the Ultraman-esque Tokatsu sort of stuff. So even from someone that much younger than me, I still have a little bit of an affinity for some stuff.
Yeah. Again, I want to sit down, like, almost like a therapy session and talk about where our lives took us. Cause I think probably 12, 13, the skateboarding, the bike riding, and then I just kind of meandered away from actually playing with toys. They were still there. So when my younger brother was playing things like the Ghostbusters and the Turtles, I know I watched the real Ghostbusters cartoon. I never really watched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons. So there, and the Power Rangers was completely not on my radar growing up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you moved on to other interests and things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, and maybe this is what we'll kind of like wrap up on. I very much transitioned right from playing with toys to collecting toys. Mm-hmm. And that was very much prompted by this book entering my house. And we'll talk more about.
Oh, there's a good tease for next time. All right, cool.
Maybe, probably not next week, but I think maybe 2 weeks from now we'll do like another Origins episode where I want to kind of start talking about what are those flashpoints where it's kind of like, oh, I want this stuff either again, or I'm now appreciating it in a different way. I'm doing different things with them. I'm putting them on shelves. I'm trying to make sure they're all complete. Like, what happened? Like, when did we break?
And we should also talk about the garage sale of Doom era, because I think that's where all my G.I. Joe guys went and my vehicles. Like the second my parents saw that I wasn't paying attention to it, those things just kind of started to vanish.
And we can get into that next week. I definitely think we have run out of time to talk about Andor this evening. So suffice to say, it was good. I enjoyed it. But I'm starving.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to keep you because you get hangry when you're starving there. But yeah, Andor was unbelievable. I think just unbelievable. The only thing I will say about Andor is they kept talking about how, oh, it's going to make Rogue One so much better. It's going to make Rogue One so much better. I'm like, that is a load of BS. That's such a dumb thing to say. And I stand corrected, eating my words. It made Rogue One just so much better. Even going into A New Hope and everything, just amazing stuff.
Great show. But I really enjoyed this conversation. Like I feel bad because like we went way long.
Yeah.
And we were rushing at the end. I think we could have just this chunk of stuff. I think we could have probably kept talking for a while. So apologies if I was kind of rushing us through, but I kept looking at the time going,
gotta stay on schedule. This is the longest I think we've ever gone. So
yes, by like 15 minutes, I think. So but it was a good conversation. I'm really looking forward to the next chunk. And hopefully we'll be back next week with something else kind of wacky.
You got it. All right. Well, it's good to catch up. I learned something new as always. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight. Yeah, I'll be curious to hear too about everyone's favorite toys or random, like the obscure stuff that we grew up with and how we got our hands on it. But until next time,
in the comments what Star Wars figures you had.
Yes. And then some.
All right. Have fun, everybody.
All right. Have a great night. Cheers.
Perfectly excellent.